the world of Victorian dinner table etiquette could be something of a minefield, where one false move marks you as unrefined or even vulgar. Every intricate detail was taken into consideration, from the seating arrangement and the centerpieces to when it was considered proper to leave the table. Much of the advice feels timeless. Good table manners use the serving spoons, but plenty has not aged well, like the insistence that a lady must never enter the dining room without a gentleman escort. This was the world that Florence Hartley wrote for in her 1860 book, The Ladies Book of Etiquette. It promised young women a complete map of this social landscape, and in this video we'll focus on her chapters about table etiquette and dinner parties. We'll begin with her guidance on the correct etiquette for hosting such an event.
In issuing invitations for a large dinner party, the usual form is, Mr. and Mrs. G request the favour of Mr. and Mrs. L's company to dinner on Wednesday, March 8th at 7 o'clock. If your husband is giving a party to gentlemen only, he will have a card printed or written for the occasion, but your duties as hostess, if he wishes you to preside, will still be as arduous as if your own friends were included in the invitation. The directions given in the chapter on evening parties for the arrangement of the parlour and the dressing rooms will apply here equally well. But the dining room, in this case the centre of attraction, requires still more careful attention. Any fault here will mar your own comfort and the pleasure of your guests, and must be carefully avoided. Send out your invitations by a servant, or man hired for the purpose. Do not trust them to dispatch or penny post. Be careful in selecting the guests for a dinner party. Remember that conversation will be the sole entertainment for several hours, and if your guests are not well chosen, your dinner, no matter how perfect or costly the viands, will prove a failure. The most agreeable dinners are those whose numbers will allow all the guests to join in a common conversation, and where the host has spirit and intelligence to take the lead, and start a new subject when the interest in the old one begins to flag. Dinners where the guests depend entirely upon the person next them for conversation are apt to be stupid, as it requires marvellous tact to pair off all the couples, so that everyone will be entertaining in tete-a-tete conversation. To give a good dinner, your means, room, and establishment must all be taken into consideration when you are preparing for a dinner company. If you invite a large number, you must increase your establishment for the occasion, as to sit down to a dinner badly served, with a scarcity of waiters, is tiresome, and shows little tact or grace on the part of the hostess. One cook cannot prepare dinner properly for more than 10 persons, and 3 waiters will find ample employment in waiting upon the same number. More than this number will require a table too large for general, easy conversation, and throw your company into couples or trios for entertainment. Have your table spread in a room that will accommodate all the guests comfortably. At the same time, avoid putting a small social party in a large room, where they will appear lost in the space around them. Let the room be comfortably warmed, and if your dinner is late, have the apartments well lighted. If you sit down by daylight, but will remain in the room until after dark, have the shutters closed and the lights lit before the dinner is announced, as nothing can be more awkward than to do this in the middle of the meal. The shape of a table is a point of more importance than some people think. If you wish your dinner to be social, not a mere collection of tete-a-tetes, the table should be of a shape which will make it easy for each guest to address anyone at the table. The long parallelogram, with the host at one end and the hostess at the other, is stiff, too broad, too long, and isolates the givers of the feast from the guests. The round table, if large enough to accommodate many guests, has too large a diameter each way for easy conversation. The best table is the oval, and the host and hostess should sit in the middle of each side, facing each other. The dining room, even in the heat of summer, should be carpeted to deaden the noise of the servants' feet. The chairs should be easy, without arms, and with tall slanting backs. It adds much to the comfort if each person is provided with a footstool. You must have, besides the waiters, one servant to carve, and he must be an adept. No dish should be carved upon the table, and that no guest shall wait too long for his meat. You must engage a rapid and dexterous carver. For a party of 10, 2 waiters and the carver are amply sufficient. If you have too many servants, they will only interfere with each other and stand staring at the guests. Give your orders before dinner, and through the meal never speak to the servants. Your whole attention must be given to the guests. Even if you see that matters are going wrong, do not let your annoyance appear, but gracefully ignore the painful facts. Let each servant have his regular position at the table. One should take the guests at the right of the hostess, and the left of the host, the other the guests on the other side. They should wear light, noiseless shoes, and white gloves, and each one carry a folded napkin over his right arm. The main point in the arrangement of the table itself is to secure beauty, without interfering with conversation. The table cover and napkins must be of snowy damask, the glass clear as crystal, and taste must preside over each detail. Let nothing high be placed on the table that will effectually separate the guests from each other. There should be, first, a handsome centerpiece, and this may be of glass, silver, or china, and not too high or large, and must be elegant as a work of art, or it is better omitted altogether. Preserve or fruit stands, tastefully decorated, with the fruit on fresh, green leaves, and flowers mingled with them, form exquisite centerpieces. A pyramid of flowers, or tasty vase or basket, forms, too, a beautiful ornament for the center of the table. In addition to this, the French scatter vases of flowers all over the table, at the corners and in the center. Some place a small, fragrant bouquet before the plate of each guest. Nothing can be more beautiful than this arrangement. Glasses of celery, dishes of clear, transparent jellies or preserves, exquisite little glass plates of pickles should stand in order on the table. Place before each guest the plate, knife, fork, spoon, 4 wine glasses of various sizes, the goblet for water, napkin, small salt cellar, salt spoon, and roll of bread. Place none of the meats or vegetables upon the large table. These should all be served at a side table, each guest selecting his own, to be handed by the servants. The first course is soup. As this is not meant to destroy the appetite for other viands, it should be light, not too rich or thick. Let the servant hand 1 ladleful to each person. If you have more than one kind, he must first inquire which each guest prefers. If you have wines, let them be handed round after the soup. Next comes the fish. If you have large fish, let a slice, cut smoothly, not made into a hash by awkward carving, be placed upon the plate of the guest, with a slice of egg and drawn butter. If the fish are small, one should be placed upon each plate. Then come the patties of oysters, minced veal or lobster, or, instead of these, you may have poultry or game. Next, the roast. With the meats have vegetables served on a separate plate, that the guest may take as much as he wishes with meat. You will, of course, have a variety of vegetables, but scarcely any guest will choose more than 2. The pastry and puddings come next in order, and these, too, are better served from a side table. Between the pastry and the dessert, have salad and cheese placed before each guest. If you eat dessert in the same room that you dine in, it should be placed upon the table, with the exception of the ices, before the guests are seated, and this comes after the pastry has been discussed. It should consist of fruit and ices. A pleasanter and more elegant way is to have the fruit and ices spread in a separate room and leave the dining room after the pastry has been eaten. The change of position, the absence of the meat flavor in the atmosphere, make the dessert much more delightful than if it is eaten in the same room as the dinner. In summer especially, the change to a cool, fresh room, where the ices and fruits are tastefully spread, and flowers are scattered profusely about the room, delights every sense. Coffee follows the dessert, and when this enters, if your guests are gentlemen only, your duty is at an end. You may then rise, leave the room, and need not reappear. If you have lady guests, you give the signal for rising after coffee, and lead the way to the parlour, where, in a few moments, the gentleman will again join you. Suppose your guests invited, servants instructed, every arrangement made, and the important day arrived. The next point to consider is the reception of your guests. Be dressed in good season, as many seem to consider an invitation to dinner as one to pass the day, and come early. Take a position in your drawing room, where each guest will find you easily, and remain near it until every guest has arrived. As each one enters, advance to meet him, and extend your hand. As the time just before dinner is very apt to be tiresome, you should bring forward all the armor against stupidity that you possess. Display upon tables arranged conveniently about the room curiosities, handsome books, photographs, engravings, stereoscopes, medallions, any works of art you may own, and have the ottomans, sofas, and chairs so placed that your guests can move easily about the room, or rooms. The severest test of good breeding in a lady is in the position of hostess receiving dinner guests. Your guests may arrive all at once, yet you must make each one feel that he or she is the object of your individual attention, and none must be hurt by neglect. They may arrive very early, yet your duty is to make the time fly until dinner is announced. They may come late, and risk the ruin of your choicest dishes, yet you must not, upon pain of a breach of etiquette, show the least annoyance. If you know that the whole kitchen is in arms at the delay, you must conceal the anguish, as the Spartan boy did his pangs, to turn a cheerful, smiling face upon the tardy guests. When dinner is announced, you will lead the way to the dining room upon the arm of one of your gentlemen guests, having paired off the company in couples. The host comes in last with a lady upon his arm. You may indicate to each couple, as they enter the dining room, the seats they are to occupy, standing until all are seated, or you may allow them to choose their own places. The English fashion of placing a card upon each plate, with the name of the person to take that seat upon it, is a good one. It enables the hostess to place those whom she is certain will be mutually entertaining, next each other. Place the gentleman who escorts you from the parlour at your right hand. Having once taken your seat at table, you have nothing to do with the dinner but to partake of it. Not a word, or even a glance, will a well-bred hostess bestow upon the servants, nor will she speak to the guests of the dishes. Their choice rests between themselves and the waiters, and you must take no notice of what they eat, how much, or how little. Nay, should they partake of one dish only, you must ignore the fact. The greatest tact is displayed where the hostess makes each guest feel perfectly at ease. She will aid her husband both in leading and supporting the conversation, and will see that no guest is left in silence from want of attention. Whilst she ignores every breach of etiquette her guests may commit, she must carefully observe every rule herself, and this she must do in an easy, natural manner, avoiding every appearance of restraint. Her deportment, she may be sure, is secretly watched and criticized by each guest, yet she must appear utterly unconscious that she is occupying any conspicuous position. To watch the servants, or appear uneasy, lest something should go wrong, is excessively ill-bred, and if any accident does occur, you only make it worse by noticing it. To reprove or speak sharply to a servant before your guests manifests a shocking want of good breeding. The rules given above are only applicable to large dinner parties, and where the guests are few, and the host himself carves, these rules will not apply. In this case, as you will only require the services of your own household domestics, you must, of course, attend personally to the wants of your guests. Dinner not being served from a side table, you must, while putting tasteful ornaments upon it, be careful not to crowd them, and leave room for the substantial dishes. You must watch the plate of each guest, to see that it is well provided, and you will invite each one to partake of the various dishes. Have a servant to pass the plates from you to each guest, and from the host to you, after he has put the meat upon them, that you may add gravy and vegetables before they are set before your visitors. At these smaller dinner companies, avoid apologizing for anything, either in the viands or the arrangement of them. You have provided the best your purse will allow, prepared as faultlessly as possible. You will only gain credit for mock modesty if you apologize for a well-prepared, well-spread dinner, and if there are faults, they will only be made more conspicuous if attention is drawn to them by an apology. Ease of manner, quiet dignity, cheerful, intelligent conversation, and gentle, lady-like deportment never appear more charming than when they adorn a lady at the head of her own table.
The author now shifts her focus to the guest and the rules for how to behave in someone else's home. This chapter covers everything from answering an invitation and arriving on time to conduct at the table And finally, how to take your leave with grace.
When you receive an invitation to join a dinner party, answer it immediately. By leaving your hostess in doubt whether you intend to accept or decline her hospitality, you make it impossible for her to decide how many she must prepare for. If you accept at first, and any unforeseen event keeps you from fulfilling your engagement, write a second note that your hostess may not wait dinner for you. Such a note, if circumstances render it necessary to write it, may be sent with perfect propriety an hour before the time appointed for dinner. Though, if you are aware that you cannot attend earlier, you must send the information in good season. You should enter the house of your hostess from a quarter to half an hour earlier than the time appointed for dining. Proceed at once to the dressing room and arrange your dress and hair, and then enter the drawing room. By going to the house too early, you may hasten or interrupt the toilet arrangements of your hostess, while, by being late, you will establish a most disagreeable association in the minds of all present, as the lady who kept dinner waiting at Mrs. L's. Immediately upon entering the parlour, find your hostess, and speak to her first. It is very rude to stop to chat with other guests before greeting the lady of the house. You may bow to anyone you know in passing, but do not stop to speak. Having exchanged a few words with your hostess, turn to the other guests, unless you are the first arrival. In that case, converse with your host and hostess until others come in. Be careful if dinner is delayed by the tardiness of the guests, or from any other cause, that you do not show by your manner that you are aware of such delay. To look towards the door often, consult your watch, or give tokens of weariness, are all marks of ill-breeding. Your hostess will probably be sufficiently annoyed by the irregularity itself. Do not add to her discomfort by allowing her to suppose that her guests perceive the deficiencies. Look over the books and pictures with an air of interest, converse cheerfully, and in every way appear as if dinner were a matter of secondary importance, as indeed it should be, compared with the pleasure of the society around you. When the signal for dinner is given, your hostess will probably name your escort to the table. If he is a stranger, bow in acknowledgement of the introduction, take his arm, and fall into your place in the stream of guests passing from the parlour to the dining room. Take the seat pointed out by your hostess, or the waiter, as soon as it is offered. Each one will do this upon entering, and it prevents the confusion that will result if those first entering the room remain standing until all the other guests come in. When you take your seat, be careful that your chair does not stand upon the dress of the lady next you, as she may not rise at the same instant that you do, and so you risk tearing her dress. Sit gracefully at the table, neither so close as to make your movements awkward, nor so far away as to drag your food over your dress before it reaches your mouth. It is well to carry in your pocket a small pincushion, and, having unfolded your napkin, to pin it at the belt. You may do this quietly, without its being perceived, and you will thus really save your dress. If the napkin is merely laid open upon your lap, it will be very apt to slip down, if your dress is of silk or satin, and you risk the chance of appearing again in the drawing-room with the front of your dress soiled or greased. If, by the carelessness or awkwardness of your neighbours or the servants, you have a plate of soup, glass of wine, or any dish intended for your mouth, deposited upon your dress, do not spring up, or make any exclamation. You may wipe off the worst of the spot with your napkin, and then let it pass without further notice. If an apology is made by the unlucky perpetrator of the accident, try to set him at his ease by your own ladylike composure. He will feel sorry and awkward enough, without reproach, sullenness, or cold looks from you. Gloves and mittens are no longer worn at table, even at the largest dinner parties. To make remarks upon the guests or the dishes is excessively rude. If the conversation is general, speak loudly enough to be heard by those around you, but, at the same time, avoid raising your voice too much. If the company is very large, and you converse only with the person immediately beside you, speak in a distinct but low tone, that you may not interrupt other couples, but carefully avoid whispering or a confidential air. Both are in excessively bad taste. To laugh in a suppressed way has the appearance of laughing at those around you, and a loud, boisterous laugh is always unladylike. Converse cheerfully, laugh quietly, but freely, if you will, and while you confine your attention entirely to your neighbor, still avoid any air of secrecy or mystery. Never use an eyeglass, either to look at the persons around you or the articles upon the table. Eat your soup quietly. To make any noise in eating it is simply disgusting. Do not break bread into your soup. Break off small pieces and put into your mouth if you will, but neither bite it from the roll, nor break it up and eat it from your soup plate with a spoon. In eating bread with meat, never dip it into the gravy on your plate and then bite the end off. If you wish to eat it with gravy, break off a small piece, put it upon your plate, and then, with a fork, convey it to your mouth. Need I say that the knife is to cut your food with, and must never be used while eating? To put it in your mouth is a distinctive mark of low breeding. If you have selected what you will eat, keep the plate that is placed before you. Never pass it to the persons next you, as they may have an entirely different choice of meat or vegetables. Never attempt to touch any dish that is upon the table, but out of your reach, by stretching out your arms, leaning forward, or still worse, standing up. Ask the waiter to hand it, if you wish for it, or, if the gentleman beside you can easily do so, you may ask him to pass it to you. Do not press those near you to take more or other things than are upon their plate. This is the duty of the hostess, or, if the company is large, the servants will attend to it. For you to do so is officious and ill-bred. When conversing, let your knife and fork rest easily upon your plate, even if still in your hand. Avoid holding them upright. Keep your own knife, fork, and spoon solely for the articles upon your own plate. To use them for helping yourself to butter or salt is rude in the extreme. When you do not use the salt spoon, sugar tongs, and butter knife, you may be sure that those around you will conclude that you have never seen the articles and do not know their use. You need not fear to offend by refusing to take wine with a gentleman, even your host. If you decline gracefully, he will appreciate the delicacy which makes you refuse. If, however, you have no conscientious scruples and are invited to take wine, bow, and merely raise the glass to your lips, then set it down again. You may thus acknowledge the courtesy, and yet avoid actually drinking the wine. No lady should drink wine at dinner. Even if her head is strong enough to bear it, she will find her cheeks, soon after the indulgence, flushed, hot, and uncomfortable. And if the room is warm, and the dinner a long one, she will probably pay the penalty of her folly by having a headache all the evening. If offered any dish of which you do not wish to partake, decline it, but do not assign any reason. To object to the dish itself is an insult to your entertainers, and if you assert any reason for your own dislike, it is ill-bred. Do not bend too much forward over your food, and converse easily. To eat fast, or appear to be so much engrossed as to be unable to converse, is ill-bred, and it makes those around you suspect that you are so little accustomed to dining well that you fear to stop eating an instant, lest you should not get enough. It is equally ill-bred to accept everything that is offered to you. Never take more than 2 vegetables. Do not take a second plate of soup, pastry, or pudding. Indeed, it is best to accept but 1 plate of any article. Never use a spoon for anything but liquids, and never touch anything to eat, excepting bread, celery, or fruit with your fingers. In the intervals which must occur between the courses, do not appear to be conscious of the lapse of time. Wear a careless air when waiting, conversing cheerfully and pleasantly, and avoid looking round the room, as if wondering what the waiters are about. Never eat every morsel that is upon your plate, and surely no lady will ever scrape her plate, or pass the bread round it, as if to save the servants the trouble of washing it. Take such small mouthfuls that you can always be ready for conversation, but avoid playing with your food, or partaking of it with an affectation of delicate appetite. Your hostess may suppose you despise her fare, if you appear so very choice, or eat too sparingly. If your state of health deprives you of appetite, it is bad enough for you to decline the invitation to dine out. Never examine minutely the food before you. You insult your hostess by such a proceeding, as it looks as if you feared to find something upon the plate that should not be there. If you find a worm on opening a nut, or in any of the fruit, hand your plate quietly, and without remark, to the waiter, and request him to bring you a clean one. Do not let others perceive the movement or the cause of it if you can avoid so doing. Never make a noise in eating. To munch or smack the lips are vulgar faults. Sit quietly at table. Avoid stiffness, but, at the same time, be careful that you do not annoy others by your restlessness. Do not eat so fast as to be done long before others, nor so slowly as to keep them waiting. When the finger glasses are passed round, dip the ends of your fingers into them and wipe them upon your napkin. Then do not fold your napkin, but place it beside your plate upon the table. To carry away fruit or bonbons from the table is a sign of low breeding. Rise with the other ladies when your hostess gives the signal. After returning to the parlour, remain in the house at least an hour after dinner is over. If you have another engagement in the evening, you may then take your leave, but not before. You will insult your hostess by leaving sooner, as it appears that you came only for the dinner, and that being over, your interest in the house, for the time, has ceased. It is only beggars who eat and run.
The next chapter turns to table etiquette itself, the small, everyday habits that were seen as the true mark of refinement. Victorians believed good manners mattered just as much at a quiet family meal, or even when dining alone, as they did at a grand dinner party. A lady, Hartley insisted, was to remain a lady at all times, no matter the setting.
In order to appear perfectly well-bred at table when in company, or in public, as at a hotel, you must pay attention, 3 times a day, to the points of table etiquette. If you neglect these little details at home and in private, they will be performed awkwardly and with an air of restraint when you are in company. By making them habitual, they will become natural, and appear easily, and sit gracefully upon you. Even when eating entirely alone, observe these little details, thus making the most finished and elegant manners perfectly familiar, and thus avoiding the stiff, awkward air you will wear if you keep your politeness only for company, when you will be constantly apprehensive of doing wrong. At breakfast or tea, if your seat is at the head of the table, you must, before taking anything upon your own plate, fill a cup for each one of the family, and pass them round, being careful to suit each one in the preparation of the cup, that none may return to you for more tea, water, sugar, or milk. If you have a visitor, pass the cup with the tea or coffee alone in it, and hand with the cup the sugar bowl and cream pitcher, that these may be added in the quantity preferred. After all the cups have been filled and passed round, you may take the bread, butter, and other food upon your own plate. Train your children so that they will pass these things to you as soon as they see you are ready to receive them. If you are yourself at the side of the table, pass the bread, butter, etc., to the lady at the head, when you see that she has sent the cups from the waiter before her, to those seated at the table. If you occupy the place of head of the table, you must watch the cups, offer to fill them when empty, and also see that each one of the family is well helped to the other articles upon the table. Avoid making any noise in eating, even if each meal is eaten in solitary state. It is a disgusting habit, and one not easily cured if once contracted, to make any noise with the lips when eating. Never put large pieces of food into your mouth. Eat slowly, and cut your food into small pieces before putting it into your mouth. Use your fork or spoon, never your knife, to put your food into your mouth. At dinner, hold in your left hand a piece of bread, and raise your meat or vegetables with the fork, holding the bread to prevent the pieces slipping from the plate. If you are asked at table what part of the meat you prefer, name your favorite piece, but do not give such information unless asked to do so. To point out any especial part of a dish, and ask for it, is ill-bred. To answer, when asked to select a part, that it is a matter of indifference, or I can eat any part, is annoying to the carver, as he cares less than yourself certainly, and would prefer to give you the piece you really like best. Do not pour coffee or tea from your cup into your saucer, and do not blow either these or soup. Wait until they cool. Use the butter knife, salt spoon, and sugar tongs as scrupulously when alone, as if a room full of people were watching you. Otherwise, you may neglect to do so when the omission will mortify you. Never put poultry or fish bones, or the stones of fruit upon the tablecloth, but place them on the edge of your plate. Do not begin to eat until others at the table are ready to commence too. Sit easily in your chair, neither too near the table nor too far from it, and avoid such tricks as putting your arms on the table, leaning back lazily in your chair, or playing with your knife, fork, or spoon. Never raise your voice, when speaking, any higher than is necessary. The clear articulation and distinct pronunciation of each word will make a low tone more agreeable and more easily understood than the loudest tone, if the speech is rapid or indistinct. Never pass your plate with the knife or fork upon it, and when you pass your cup, put the spoon in the saucer. Never pile up the food on your plate. It looks as if you feared it would all be gone before you could be helped again, and it will certainly make your attempts to cut the food awkward, if your plate is crowded. If there is a delicacy upon the table, partake of it sparingly, and never help yourself to it a second time. If you wish to cough or use your handkerchief, rise from the table and leave the room. If you have not time to do this, cover your mouth and turn your head aside from the table, and perform the disagreeable necessity as rapidly and quietly as possible. Avoid gesticulation at the table. Indeed, a well-bred lady will never gesticulate, but converse quietly, letting the expression and animation of her features give force to her words. Never, when at the home table, leave it until the other members of the family are also ready to rise.
And here's where we'll leave things today. These chapters were just a small selection from the full book, the Ladies Book of Etiquette. And if that's something you'd like to hear more of, be sure to subscribe, because we'll be covering plenty more from this book, as well as others like it. If you'd like to read the full text for yourself, there's a link in the description. It's completely free to read or download. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. We really appreciate it and hope to see you next time.